Welcome back to today's technique. Today we are going to talk about metallics. There are now two schools of thought, I think, with metallics mostly. Either you go the metallic color range, so just normal metallic colors with shiny pigments in them, or you try to imitate it like the painters of old with non-metallic colors. I want to show you both today. So we are using two metallics to create a true metallic. This is how it is called. And then we also go over non-metallic metal. So first up, we use true metallic metal. And for demonstration purposes, I will take the shoulder pad on the side. Makes it a bit easier for me to not paint the entire model. So we take our darker metallic color. You can of course mix in just black into your metallics to make them darker. And we just quickly paint that on here. And we of course now know which area we need to paint because we have cleaned it up and blocked it out beforehand. And now know that we need to just paint over this black part. So, and also here the one in the middle, there we go. So, to add a bit more depth to it, we can use a wash to, of course, wash our color. I want to go with a bit of a gold, so I think I will take a brown wash, or how it's often called sepia. I'm using again a normal ink. Just put a tiny bit on our palette. Wait a bit till this is dry. And then we just dilute it a bit so it flows a bit nicer. Check. And then we brush. And here we just want to stop around the rivets. So we give those a bit more definition. And again, where we don't really want to have it pool, we can just take our brush again and dab a bit. And where we want to have more, we of course add a bit more to our brush. And I will just dab those roughly around the rivets. And while this is drying, we can take our other color, our lighter metallic color, and place it right next to our normal one. So now you see also the difference of light intensity. This is more like a brass color, and this is our golden yellow. And what we want to do is mix those roughly 60-40. So we have a bit more gold in our mix because it is already very dark looking. And we just take the areas that we don't want to add the shine to it. So like edges and middle parts of our metallic where we don't want to have the override our wash we just did. Top facing parts, there we go. And paint those over. To add a bit more here. The edges here. We can also just add more of our gold color or just straight up go to our gold. And edge highlight our side panel here. So basically like we paint with normal colors, but now they are shiny. So we go with our gold color along the areas where we again think light would reflect the most. So like edges and larger panels like the middle part. And then we just go along there, and there we then have a nice true metallic. Now I'll quickly rinse my brush and also change my water, because now we are using non-metallic metals and we don't want to have any of those metallic pigments in our color while we are painting something that doesn't want to have the shiny pigments. So be right back. So for non-metallic metal, I have here picked out those paints. You can of course pick some pre-picked from tutorials and everything. I have just chosen those because I think they could work. I've chosen a dark brown, a light brown, a yellow, and an off-white. By the yellow you need to check if it is a lighter yellow or a darker yellow. We have here this sun yellow, it's a bit more orangey, and this one is a bit more paler. So we have a bit less saturation in this one than in the other one. And we want something like that. If we, for example, take a metallic object and look at it, we have here a very pale reflection going on. And this is what we want to imitate with the ice yellow and our normal yellow. What I would call the yellow is more of a saturation change, because we want to have something a bit more interesting going on. If we look at the coil here, you see it's a lot of like dark brown, and then it gets very light here, very dark, or somewhat dark again, and then we have our other saturation point, or it's for me my second light, and then it goes dark again. So we want to imitate this. And you don't need to be a pro at the beginning for non-metallic metals, but one thing you should keep in mind is where there is a very light reflection point, it gets very dark next to it. It's the same here. You have a very light reflection point, and then it's very dark, and then it becomes a slight reddish, but I think it's a reflection of my hand. But we don't talk about reflections. We talk about how we easily can reproduce non-metallic metal. And if you keep this in mind, just like put light, very light, next to very dark, that makes it a bit easier for you to remember. And for that, we take here the other shoulder pad of our model. And we just first up want to paint everything in our dark brown. And that will help us to determine where we put our highlights or other colors more like. And we just want to make a base coat. Of course, if you look at other painters, they leave like a bit of black down there because we don't have if we have a very strong light coming from the top. But I like to go with a good base coat of our darkest color first, just so we have every surface touched a bit and it doesn't is totally black. And we just quickly base coat that. And we already see, while this paint here is somewhat wet, where our reflection points are. I think you can very nicely see them. I think here should also be one. The paint already has somewhat dried. You can of course do that with like a black that dries shiny. It's just because the paint is wet now, it makes it a bit easier. But our reflection points are here. Then we have here our ball and the claw of the wing. And like some parts of the wing should also catch some light. We have some light points there and like around like this trim here. And that is basically where we want to follow our other colors. So I will just mix a bit of umber, or like the light brown, the light brown into my dark brown. So we have a somewhat roughly 50-50 mix. And then we just go over where we determined our light spots. It's here, the wing part, the ball, and we don't want to cover all the surface, we just paint it over or base coat it. You just want to always leave a tiny bit of your dark color next to your light color if we want to remember the light next to dark part. And we just select our spots first, and then we can use edge highlighting again to highlight out our areas. Because if we look at a metallic object, everything catches a bit of the light, and we want to represent that. And for that, you just take your 50-50 mix, and then we just edge highlight all over our miniature or all over our metallic area. You can take your time with that or not. You can like make it also look a bit rougher, then it gets this more of a battle worn look, because like some dings and scratches make it look used. And we just run that all along. Also in the back, so we have a bit of reflection from underground. Something like this. And we can switch to our normal, just light brown. And repeat the process. But this time just, again, don't take everything. You just want to pick out our previous selected highlight spots. You can take a photo in front before you start, if you like, if you want to have your reflection as a reference, or you can just take the light from up top as your guide. The issue sometimes I have with that is that if we shift the model, the light values changes, and then we don't know anymore where our light points should be set. I'm just picking out spots I think look interesting. You can take it a bit more relaxed here. We want to have fun first and foremost. So go more with the rule of cool. Doesn't need to be 100% accurate. If you think that reflection will look cool, go with it. We don't want to break ourselves painting something. We just want to have a nice time putting paint on a miniature. And we can also take a reflection up here. And also not forget to always highlight your rivets. Yeah, something like this. And then we can mix in our saturation shift, aka our yellow. You can of course try out other colors if you like. Like I have done it with a bit of like green, so you get like a greenish gold. That also works nicely. And if you like paint steel or iron, like something that is more like less on the yellowish side and more on the bluish side, you can like put in a bit of blue in there, or like turquoise or purple. That also works. But for gold, I usually just take a yellow or, like I said, a green if I want to have more of a sickly looking green, metallic. And the saturation booster, we just want to put at some spots that should be reflecting or more sprung out to the eye. We can also just put a bit like here on the wing, just so we give it a bit more flavor. Also take it there. It should somewhat offset of your other highlight, the ice yellow. So we don't want to like put it on all our surfaces. And we can also maybe just like, there's a bit of a drastic tonal shift, but we put one like there in the back. Maybe we also put like a tiny bit of light umber there as well, just so we have a bit of a build up. And then we just take our ice yellow, mix a bit of our umber in there. Our not umber, our light brown is now taking most of our heavy lifting. If we take a look back of our coil, there's also like the darkest down here, but the most is just like a in-between color. So we want to choose one color we want to like use as a mother color is the concept called. So a color that get mixed in with all the other colors. And that creates a nice harmoniously looking piece. So we want to incorporate a tiny bit of that like light brown into everything, just so we have everything looking somewhat similar. And that makes it look a bit nicer. And now I'm just selecting a few tiny highlight spots. And where you put those highlight spots is something I think this is just something you need to learn. How other artists put their highlight spots. You can like look up some metallic references, how like digital painter do it, or regular painters on a canvas. Or of course you can look at like real life objects and see how those reflect. I think we also take like a tiny bit here. And I think also here on the edges of the wings should also look cool. Just take like a tiny reflection there. And as you can see, I'm not really planning it out. I'm just going with what I think would look cool. And as our final highlight, we can take our ice yellow and just edge highlight some parts, just so we give that final saturation boost. And there you can take it more like a, yeah, this is right next to our dark part, and it will not look bad because, like we have established, we want to put our lightest highlight next to our darkest part, and our darkest part is mostly like our dark brown. So you can just take your time and put it at spots you think would look cool or pop. I think this is already looking very nice. We can take a tiny bit and just like put it right there where our main light will hit the armor panel. And maybe I want to have something also more here. And this is also a process where you can go back and forth, like back to a step before, where you just mix like the yellow and the light brown, or we go back further to the dark brown. And you can go back and forth how you like. And that is how we do some non-metallic metals. And of course, it's your way to choose what you want to do. If you want to go with the metallic colors route or the non-metallic color route, this is your to choose. I'm just here to show you. Well, I like both. I like both very much. I like how this one is so shiny and reflective, and I like this because it, like as an artist or as a painter, gives me the opportunity to set my lights and set a mood. I don't really have this here, but like there are pros and cons to both, and you need to find what is good for you. So, thank you for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.